Today is a magical day. Giant Software unexpectedly surprised us with a short little video in their Discord. It was a video that showed a light blue screen with a code in front of it, transitioning to a light green screen with a code in front of it. If you did the research of the code and put it in Google, it would just simply show you the color that it's in front of. Nothing more, nothing less. Most people will say that the light blue color represents this right here. And it is the same light blue color, which would make you believe that the light green color would be the icon for the next base game. And that would be a logical conclusion to make. So if 22 is light blue, then 25 is light green. No big deal. So what are you making a video about, Jab? What if I told you that there's more meaning to blue and green than just this, right? Just this. And you're just like, oh man, you're crazy. Hey, give me just a couple minutes, right? If you don't like what's coming out of my pie hole, hey, we can agree to disagree. But I'm going to tell you what I think the colors mean, other than just this. Simply this. Light blue is the color of peace and tranquility. Giants has already released a video, a recap, so to speak, of the development of 22 and everything that, when it's come out, what has come out, how it's come out, and, and we celebrated. We looked at it in amazement and awe and remembered all the fond memories that we had of it. But they did it in a way of showing to us that, hey, they're done with working on 22. Everything that they're going to do, as far as the company's concerned, has been completed. It's the end of the base project for Farm Sim 22, and they're putting it to rest. Or putting it to the end, however you want to say it. But there's a peace and tranquility about it, right? It doesn't mean that we don't have fondness and we look back and think about all the great times that we had, or we can continue to have with the games. It doesn't mean that modders won't make the product more stuff for it, and Giants will they'll still put it on the mod hub. It's just that Giants themselves aren't making DLCs for it. They're not making season passes for it. And other than some, hot fixes here and there, they're basically done with the development cycle. Okay. Well, if light blue represents that, then what does light green represent, Jab? I'm glad you asked. Light green represents renewal and growth. And you're just like, okay, well, sure. Tell me a little bit more about that. All right, well, sure, I'll tell you about that. Let's talk about renewal and growth. Well, first of all, renewal. If 22 is tranquil and peace and we're at the end, then we have to start somewhere, right? Isn't that renewal? You're just like, Jab, that's just too easy. That's low-hanging fruit. You got to do better than that, brother. Hang on a second. Let's talk about other renewals, right? The fact that Giant Software self-publishes now, right? They're not just a developer. They also produce games, and they're self-publishing games. Were they perfect at it? No, right? They did make some mistakes along the way, right? There was some awkward moments here and there. We can talk about the last DLC if you guys want to point at that. We could talk at the beginning of 22. We could talk about that. I'm sure there's a couple of places that if you're really angry enough, you could say this happened, that happened, the other happened. And yes, you would be absolutely right. Those things did happen. And that's part of renewal, right? The company is renewing itself and learning how to do things. Let's talk about growth. Now, growth is another thing that Giants is going through. They're growing. Stop and think about this. Giants had enough foresight to do community spotlights. It's simple, right? They did spotlights on creators that were quote unquote movers and shakers, pillars of the community, so to speak, and interviewed them and showcased them so other people could see them. I happened to be one of the people that was spotlighted, and I was greatly appreciative of it. One of the questions that was always asked of all of the content creators was, if you could have one thing in the next base game, what would you have? Well, a list was made. Whether you believe it or not, Giants grew, and they learned how to take some advice when they asked for it, not non-solicited advice, but solicited advice to make an idea of what the community wants in the future. And they did that through the community spotlights. Not only in the community spotlights, but I also happened to be at TwitchCon, and I streamed on Giants channel. That's where this banner came from. And I was asked that question on a couch sitting next to Red Dirt Ranch, Jimmy, and Lolly. For those of you all that don't know, but yeah, it happened. And it's not the only times that they've asked questions about what does the community want to see in the future. Now, there's no guarantees we're going to get those things. However, it is a sign of growth. It's a sign of maturity. It's a sign of taking responsibility and trying to press forward. And you're like, all right, maybe Jab, maybe I'll give you that. But if that's all you got, no, I got more. So let's talk about other versions of interpretations of green, right? I'm going to tell you right now, rice. Yeah, I said it, rice. And now, if you're saying, whoa, Jab, rice isn't green, brother. It's white or it's brown. Sometimes you might get black, but I've never seen green rice. No. That's the final version of rice. You ever seen baby rice when you plant it and it's growing? It's green. All right. Rice is the only crop in the top 5 globally that is not in the game. So that could be it. What's other things about green? I'm glad you asked. Green farming, right? Let's talk about green farming. What is green farming? That's just a catchphrase. It's a buzz phrase. It's stuff that people, the government, and the media says to, confuse us, right? Green farming is a thing, right? And I'll give you examples of green farming. Vertical farming. Vertical farming is simply taking a small space and maximizing that space to get the biggest yield that you possibly can. And sometimes it's as simple as vertical farming, right? It's a warehouse where you got stuff in hydroponics and this, that, and the other. How it works is beyond me, but I know it works. Organic and bio stuff, right? You're just like, well, yeah, I've heard of that, but does that really matter? Well, yeah, it improves the health of the soil, right? Precision farming, right? Health of the soil. We learned about this in 1922. Why wouldn't we expand upon this, right? And that also covers cover crops. Good Lord, please let cover crops be a thing, because in 22 it wasn't, and 25 it needs to be a thing. Please, Giants, for the love of everything that's holy, give us a reason to use cover crops again. Renewable energy, solar, wind, hydroelectric, biomass, right? We have biomass diesel stuff. That's renewable energy. You guys just didn't even realize you were using it. You just thought it was a good way of making money. No, it's still a thing. Electric field equipment, right? Hey, more electric stuff, right? It's less pollution, right? We're not using biodiesels. We're using alternate forms. These are all forms of green farming that we already have examples of it in the game. Why not expand upon it? It's not that far-fetched to believe that they could just take the next step. And you're like, okay, so you talked about rice, you talked about green farming. What else are you going to talk about? Coffee and tea. Both of these worldwide, yes, you heard me right, worldwide beverages that are family-friendly are in the game. And they're the color green, right? So it's not that far-fetched to believe. Why not? All right, now the last one. This may be a stretch, right? However, this might be the biggest thing that it possibly will happen in the future. Stop and think about this for just a minute. The flag of India has green in it. I know what you're thinking. Jab, what does that have to do with anything? 1 billion people. It's a lot of people. It also represents a continent that has never been represented in the Farm Sim franchise before. Let's think about other things. Global market. If we're growing the Farm Sim franchise, wouldn't it make sense to grow it at a place that has billions of people that would probably love this game? And stop and think about this for a second. I know what you're thinking. You're like, Chap, you're way out of bounds. If you look at 19 was about growing the Farm Sim universe in North America, right? You got John Deere, you got cotton, right? You got horses. And last but least, you got man's best friend, the dog. If that isn't all things that represent Americana and North America and trying to grow in that franchise, you're not being honest with yourself. The only place that, an Asian map has not existed yet. There's billions of people over there. I've already talked about the fact that rice is a worldwide crop that we don't have, that should be in the game. I just talked about coffee and tea. It all makes sense. Now, am I on point here? I don't know. I think I am. I think I'm onto something. I could be off my rocker, right? And you could be like, old man, your brain cells died a long time ago. And you could be right. There's only one way to find out. Hey, if you gotten this far, hit the subscribe button, right? And after you hit the subscribe button, if you agree with me, leave a comment. If you disagree with me, leave a comment and tell me why you disagree with me. Hey, it could be as simple as, dude, I got one word for you. Dementia, right? If that's the case, that's the case. But I've given you my look at blue and green and what I interpret what it means and what Giants is trying to tell us. Am I right? Who knows? Only time will tell. But just remember this video. We may be coming back and going, dude, you know what? We should have listened to that old guy with that white beard. He kind of looks like Nostradamus and he knows what he's talking about. Well, as always, happy farming.